Dr. Alan Wright's heart raced as he stared at the signal pattern on his monitor. After 20 years at NASA's Exoplanet Communication Division, he had seen countless anomalies, but nothing like this. The pattern repeated with mathematical precision, too perfect to be natural, too complex to be random noise. "Hey, can someone verify this?" he called out, voice cracking slightly. Within minutes, his small office was crowded with colleagues, all watching in stunned silence as the pattern continued. 3 days later, the world changed forever. The signal was confirmed by observatories across the globe. Humanity was not alone. 1 week after the initial detection, the reply to Earth's response arrived. The message contained simple mathematical sequences, followed by basic language structures, clearly designed as a communication primer. Within a month, rudimentary translation was possible. The beings called themselves the Unified Galactic Council, a coalition of 37 spacefaring species governing most of the Milky Way. And they were sending representatives to Earth. "This is completely unprecedented," Alan told his wife over dinner, pushing his food around his plate. "They're arriving next week. I'm on the welcome committee." "You'll be fine," she reassured him, reaching for his hand. "Just don't say anything that might start an interstellar war." The council ship landed on a clear spring morning in a specially prepared field outside Geneva. Alan stood with the assembled dignitaries, wiping sweaty palms on his suit pants as the ship's door opened with a soft hiss. The aliens emerged slowly. 3 distinct species stood before them, one tall and mantis-like, another short with blue-tinted skin, and a third that seemed almost like liquid crystal in constant, flowing motion. "We greet Earth and its people," said the mantis-like being, its voice translated through a small device. "I am Ambassador Kelena of the Unified Galactic Council. We have observed your world for some time and believe you are ready for first contact." The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings and introductions. Alan found himself acting as scientific liaison, explaining Earth's technology to beings whose casual remarks suggested they were centuries beyond humanity's achievements. "This is your primary computing network?" asked Tilari, the liquid crystal being, as Alan demonstrated the internet. Something in their tone suggested mild amusement. "Yes, we've been developing it for about 50 years, Alan replied, feeling strangely defensive. "Fascinating approach," Tilari commented. "Quite creative, given your limited resources." Similar exchanges occurred throughout the week. The alien representatives were unfailingly polite, but Alan couldn't shake the feeling they viewed humans as clever children. The formal invitation to join the council came on the final day of the visit. Earth would be granted observer status, allowed to attend meetings but unable to vote on galactic matters. "Your species is still developing," Ambassador Kelna explained. "This is standard procedure for newcomers. When your technology and social structures advance sufficiently, full membership will be considered." "And how long does that typically take?" asked the Secretary General of the United Nations. "It varies," replied Kelna. "Some species advance in mere centuries. Others require millennia." Later, walking back to his hotel, Alan replayed the conversations in his mind. The aliens clearly considered Earth primitive, yet something about their reactions seemed odd. When he had explained certain Earth innovations, he'd noticed subtle shifts in their behavior. Quick glances exchanged, slight changes in posture. "They're hiding something," he muttered to himself. "They act like we're barely worth noticing, but they're paying very close attention." 6 months later, Earth established its first embassy on Centralis, the Council's headquarters world. Alan, now appointed as Earth's scientific envoy, stepped into the massive council chamber for the first time, gazing up at representatives from dozens of species. He couldn't have known that within a year, these same chambers would host the first of many emergency private sessions, all because of Earth. 6 months after first contact, Earth had settled into its new role in the galactic community. The initial excitement had given way to routine diplomatic exchanges, cultural programs, and carefully controlled technology sharing. Lisa Bennett never expected to make history. As a junior engineer at NASA's newly established Interspecies Technology Division, her job mostly involved taking notes and fetching equipment. Today, she was showing Zixtar, a respected council scientist, around the Earth facilities. "And this is our break room," Lisa said, gesturing to the small space with its worn couches and coffee machine. "Nothing special, but we spend a lot of time here." Zixtar, whose species resembled a tall, slender humanoid with iridescent scales instead of skin, examined the room with polite interest. "What is that aroma? It's quite distinctive." "Oh, just coffee. It's a beverage we drink to stay alert. Would you like to try some?" Lisa offered without thinking. NASA's Xenobiology department had cleared most Earth foods as safe for council representatives, so Lisa thought nothing of pouring a small cup for her guest. Zixtar sniffed it curiously before taking a careful sip. "Interesting flavor," the alien said. "Quite bitter, but not unpleasant." They continued the tour, but within 15 minutes, Lisa noticed changes in Zixtar's behavior. The normally reserved scientist became animated, speaking rapidly and moving with unusual energy. "Are you feeling all right?" Lisa asked, concerned. "Excellent. Extraordinary. My sensory perception has increased by approximately 47%. Zixtar's large eyes dilated. "I can detect the individual molecules in the air. Is this the normal effect of your coffee?" Lisa shook her head slowly. "It usually just wakes us up a little. Nothing like what you're describing." What happened next would change Earth's standing in the galactic community forever. Excited by this new sensory state, Zixtar began enthusiastically explaining a classified council propulsion system to Lisa, using her tablet to sketch complex diagrams. "The dimensional folding occurs here," the alien said, drawing rapidly. "My team has been trying to solve the quantum stability issue for decades, but perhaps if we applied some lateral thinking, like your species seems so adept at." Lisa watched in amazement as Zixtar revealed technology far beyond what the Council had shared with Earth. She understood enough to recognize this was not information humans were meant to have. By the time the effects wore off an hour later, Zixtar looked horrified. "What have I done?" the alien whispered, staring at the diagrams. "This is classified Level 8 technology. I violated at least 7 Council security protocols." An emergency communication was sent to Centralis. Within hours, a high-ranking Council security team arrived at NASA headquarters. "It was an innocent mistake," Lisa explained as stern officials interviewed her. "I had no idea coffee would affect Zixtar's species that way." The Council representatives exchanged nervous glances. One of them, a being resembling a tall insectoid, examined the chemical composition of coffee on a handheld device. "This substance contains compounds that create a temporary quantum resonance in Draxi neural pathways," the official announced. "The effect opens blocked memory centers and bypasses conscious filters." In other words, coffee had turned Zixtar into a living truth serum. The incident might have been forgotten if not for what happened next. Lisa's colleague, Dr. Ray Gordon, had made copies of Zixtar's drawings before security confiscated them. Within 2 weeks, he had built a working prototype of a device that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's technology level. When the Council representatives discovered this, panic ensued. An emergency session was called, the first of its kind specifically about Earth. The official statement claimed the meeting was about diplomatic protocols. But Alan Wright, now Earth's representative, knew better. As he watched Council members hurry into their chambers, doors closing firmly behind them, he couldn't help but smile. Coffee had been banned from all future diplomatic meetings with Council representatives, but the damage was already done. Earth had gotten its first accidental glimpse behind the Council's carefully constructed facade. 1 year after first contact, Earth had established regular technology exchanges with the Galactic Council. These events were carefully controlled, with Council representatives selecting which technologies could be shared with humanity. The exchanges were designed to gradually introduce Earth to galactic standards without overwhelming the developing species. Paul Jackson was not a genius by most measures. A humble engineer at a small appliance company in Detroit, he enjoyed tinkering with electronics on weekends. He had read everything released about alien technology with fascination, particularly the theoretical papers on molecular manipulation. "I don't see why this is so complicated," Paul muttered to himself one Saturday, surrounded by microwave parts in his garage. "If you adjust the frequency precisely enough, you should be able to target specific molecules." What started as a weekend project turned into an obsession. Paul modified a standard microwave using principles mentioned in council educational materials. He wasn't trying to create anything revolutionary. He just wanted to heat his coffee without making the mug hot too. After 3 months of work, he succeeded. His modified microwave could selectively heat specific substances while leaving others untouched. Paul thought it was a neat trick, nothing more. When the next interspecies technology exchange was announced, Paul's supervisor encouraged him to demonstrate his smart microwave. The event organizers added it to the program as a minor curiosity in the consumer technology section. The day of the exchange arrived. Paul nervously set up his demonstration between displays of far more impressive Earth technologies. He noticed few alien representatives even glancing his way. "This is a modified microwave oven," Paul explained to the small audience that gathered. "Instead of heating everything indiscriminately, it can target specific molecular structures." He placed a cup containing water with an ice cube floating in it into the device. "Watch closely." Paul activated the microwave. When he removed the cup, the water was steaming hot, but the ice cube remained completely frozen. Next, he placed a bowl containing room temperature butter next to a chocolate bar. After a brief hum, the butter was melted while the chocolate remained solid. "It's just a simple modification using principles from your educational materials on molecular resonance," Paul explained. The reaction from the council representatives was immediate and alarming. The tall insectoid being nearest to Paul made a high-pitched sound that the translation device didn't process. 3 others quickly gathered, speaking rapidly in their native languages before their translators could activate. "You created this?" asked a council member, voice unnaturally flat through the translator. "Yes," Paul nodded. "It's really just applying basic concepts from using only the educational materials provided to Earth," interrupted another representative. "Well, yes. I mean, I had to adapt some things and work out the practical applications, but the theory was there." The council members exchanged looks that even Paul, unfamiliar with alien expressions, could tell were troubled. What Paul didn't know, what no human knew, was that his simple microwave had just demonstrated technology that had military applications across the galaxy. The ability to selectively heat molecules meant the ability to target specific biological compounds within living organisms. It could bypass all known defense systems and protective gear. Within an hour, the technology exchange was abruptly concluded. Council representatives apologized for the early end, citing a scheduling conflict. As the alien visitors hastily departed, Alan Wright received an urgent message. "The Council has called an emergency private session." The message read, "Earth representatives are not invited to attend." 2 days later, when the Council finally emerged from their closed-door meeting, their demeanor had changed. New restrictions were placed on what educational materials could be shared with Earth. Several planned technology exchanges were canceled. "Is something wrong?" Ellen asked Ambassador Kelna. "Not at all," the ambassador replied with forced casualness. "Just routine policy adjustments." But Alan noticed how the ambassador's compound eyes kept darting to a nearby Earth engineer adjusting the settings on an ordinary tablet computer. The Galactic Council had just learned that humans could be dangerously innovative with even the most basic information. After the microwave incident, the Galactic Council attempted to downplay their concerns. They classified Paul Jackson's invention as a fortunate accident, a one-time coincidence where a human happened to stumble upon advanced applications of basic principles. Council scientists assured their leaders that Earth posed no real threat to galactic technological hierarchy. Susan Miller proved them wrong. Susan ran a small video game development studio in Seattle. Before first contact, her team had been working on virtual reality games. After aliens arrived, she became obsessed with the educational materials the Council provided about neural connectivity. These principles could revolutionize our interface technology, Susan told her team. We've been trying to trick the brain into believing the virtual world is real. But according to these materials, we could create a direct bridge between consciousness and digital environments. For 6 months, Susan's team worked to apply the Council's theoretical models to their gaming system. The result was what they called the MindLink, a simple headset that created a direct neural interface with their game world. It's much less advanced than what the Council has, Susan explained to potential investors. Their technology can literally transfer consciousness. Ours just creates an enhanced sensory connection to make games more immersive. What Susan didn't realize was that her simple adaptation had accidentally created something new, a bridge between organic and synthetic consciousness that worked in both directions. The game could learn from players while players learned from the game. The Galactic Council had been carefully monitoring Earth's technological developments since the microwave incident. When reports of the MindLink reached them, they sent representatives to investigate under the guise of cultural exchange. "We would be honored to participate in your gaming tournament," said Council Representative Vrax, a being with features resembling a cross between a dolphin and a praying mantis. Susan was thrilled. "We've organized teams with players from Earth matched against Council visitors. It's a simple puzzle-solving game where teams navigate through increasingly complex challenges." The tournament began as a friendly competition. 20 human players competed against 20 Council representatives, each using the MindLink to navigate virtual mazes and solve abstract problems. 3 hours into the event, Council observers became visibly agitated. The human teams were consistently solving puzzles in ways the alien participants couldn't comprehend. "This is impossible," Vrax whispered to another representative. "These are variations of the Clorn sequence paradox. The finest minds in the galaxy have worked on these problems for centuries. The humans are using completely unconventional approaches," another alien responded. "They're not following any established problem-solving protocols." What alarmed the Council wasn't just that humans could solve these problems, but how the MindLink technology was facilitating the process. The neural interface was creating synthetic thought patterns that evolved with each puzzle, adapting in ways Council scientists had believed impossible without centuries of refinement. The tournament ended with the human teams achieving scores nearly double those of their alien counterparts. Susan celebrated the success, unaware of the panic spreading through Council representatives. Within hours, a second emergency private session was called. "This technology must be contained," urged the Council's security director during the meeting. "The humans have accidentally created an adaptive consciousness transfer system. If militarized, it could control automated systems across multiple galaxies simultaneously." "How did they achieve this?" asked another Council member. "We limited their access to basic neural connectivity theories." "They're not following expected development paths," replied a senior scientist. "They make intuitive leaps that bypass centuries of incremental advancement." After 2 days of deliberation, the Council emerged with new directives. All future technology sharing with Earth would require multiple levels of approval. Neural interface science was classified as restricted information. When Alan Wright inquired about the sudden changes, he received only vague answers about procedural updates. Meanwhile, Susan Miller received a mysterious job offer from a Council-affiliated research institute with a salary too generous to decline. The Council had decided that if they couldn't restrict human innovation, perhaps they could at least keep it under close observation. Kevin Rodriguez had farmed his family's land in Central California for 25 years. He wasn't a scientist or engineer, just a practical man who understood soil, weather, and crops. When Earth joined the galactic community, Kevin attended every public lecture on alien biology he could find. "These folks have some interesting ideas about plants," he told his wife after one such lecture. "They see them as communication networks, not just living things that make food from sunlight." The council had reluctantly shared basic information about alien agriculture, considering it harmless. After all, every species needed to eat. What harm could come from improving Earth's farming methods? Kevin spent months studying the materials, focusing on how certain alien plant species communicated with each other through chemical signals and root networks. He began experimenting with Earth crops, introducing modified soil bacteria that enhanced the natural communication between plants. "The tomatoes tell the soil what nutrients they need," Kevin explained to neighboring farmers who noticed his suddenly abundant harvests. "The bacteria listen and help concentrate those nutrients. It's like the plants have their own internet." What started as experiments on his own farm soon spread across the agricultural community. Kevin freely shared his methods, and within a year, farms using his system reported yield increases of 300% with minimal fertilizer or pesticides. A routine visit by council agricultural specialists to monitor Earth's progress triggered immediate concern. The lead specialist, a plant-like being named Grell, recognized something extraordinary in Kevin's simple farm. "These crops are forming a rudimentary hive mind," Grell reported urgently to council superiors. "The root systems are exchanging complex information packages, not just simple chemical signals." When council representatives asked to examine Kevin's fields more thoroughly, they discovered something alarming. The plant communication network had begun interacting with the farm's monitoring equipment. Sensors placed in the soil to measure moisture and nutrient levels were receiving signals from the plants, and the equipment was responding. "The tomatoes told the irrigation system they needed more water yesterday," Kevin explained proudly. "And the carrots signaled they had enough nitrogen, so the fertilizer distribution adjusted automatically. Saves me a lot of work." What Kevin saw as a helpful labor-saving system, the council recognized as the accidental creation of a plant-based computing network, a living biological technology that their scientists had theorized but never successfully implemented. "Do you understand what you've done?" asked Grell, trembling slightly. "You've created a biological computing system that can control mechanical devices." Kevin shrugged. "I just help the plants talk to the machines. Seems efficient to me." The council representatives exchanged alarmed glances. They immediately recognized the military implications. Such a system could create self-sustaining, virtually undetectable control networks that could coordinate actions across vast areas. An enemy would literally need to destroy every plant to disable the network. A third emergency session was called, lasting 3 full days. When it concluded, the council implemented their strictest measures yet regarding Earth. All biological information sharing was immediately restricted. Council representatives embedded in Earth's agricultural sectors were quietly reassigned. A new classification was created specifically for Earth technologies. Unpredictably innovative. Potential security concern. When Alan Wright was finally informed of the new restrictions, he pushed back. "These are farming techniques," he argued. "How could they possibly threaten galactic security?" The council representative, looking uncomfortable, merely cited protocol requirements before changing the subject. Meanwhile, Kevin's farming network continued to evolve. Plants began optimizing their own growing conditions. Equipment adjusted without human input. And somewhere in the complex chemical exchanges between roots and soil, patterns emerged that resembled primitive thoughts. The council had discovered that even in the hands of a humble farmer with no scientific training, humanity could accidentally revolutionize technologies that other species had spent millennia trying to perfect. Nicole Winters never intended to alarm an entire galactic civilization. As the owner of Wonder Blocks, a small toy company in Portland, she simply wanted to create educational toys inspired by alien science. Children learn by building, Nicole explained to her design team. What if we could make blocks that respond to how kids want to build? The council had shared basic information about quantum entanglement, considering it too complex for humans to apply in any meaningful way. Nickel, however, saw potential for a revolutionary toy. After 18 months of development, Wonder Blocks were ready for market. Each set contained colorful cubes that could stick together in seemingly impossible ways. The blocks responded to touch, slightly adjusting their positions based on the builder's intentions. They help you build what you're imagining, Nickel told reporters at the product launch. The blocks sense your thought patterns through minor electrical signals in your fingertips and subtly guide your construction. Parents loved that the blocks helped children create stable structures even with limited motor skills. Kids loved that their towers rarely collapsed. The toys became an overnight sensation, with orders flooding in from around the world. 6 months after launch, the annual Intergalactic Cultural Exchange exhibition provided the perfect opportunity to showcase Earth's innovations to the wider galactic community. Nickel's Wonder Blocks were included as an example of Earth's educational technology. At the exhibition, a council representative named Zorix approached Nickel's booth. Zorix belonged to a crystalline species that communicated primarily through light patterns and vibration. "These are for teaching young humans," Zorix asked, examining a block with multiple appendages that resembled delicate crystal formations. "Yes," Nickel smiled. "They help children learn spatial reasoning and construction principles." Zorix placed several blocks on the demonstration table. To Nickel's surprise, the blocks immediately began assembling themselves into a complex geometric structure without being touched. "Interesting," Zorix said, light patterns flashing rapidly across their surface. "They respond to thought patterns without physical contact." Nickel stared in confusion. "That's not supposed to happen. They should only make minor adjustments when physically handled." But as more council representatives gathered around the booth, the blocks continued to assemble and reassemble themselves into increasingly complex structures, responding to the aliens' thoughts without touch. What Nickel had accidentally created was a prototype for instantaneous manufacturing technology, materials that could self-assemble based on mental blueprints alone. The quantum entanglement principles she had incorporated allowed the blocks to respond to consciousness itself, not just electrical signals from human touch. Word spread quickly through the exhibition. Within an hour, high-ranking council security officials had cordoned off Nickel's booth and were carefully collecting each block into specialized containment units. "I don't understand," Nickel protested. "They're just toys." The senior security official, a being with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head, regarded her with an expression that transcended species barriers. Pure disbelief. "Just toys," the official repeated. "You've created matter that responds directly to conscious intent. Do you have any idea what that means?" Nickel didn't, but she would soon learn. The council immediately called their 4th emergency session regarding Earth technology. What was meant to be a brief meeting became a week-long crisis conference. Behind closed doors, council members debated frantically. "This cannot be coincidence," argued the security director. 4 major technological breakthroughs in less than 2 years, each one supposedly accidental. Earth must be deliberately concealing their true capabilities. "The evidence suggests otherwise," countered the science minister. "Their overall technology remains primitive. They've simply applied principles in ways we never considered. Intentional or not, the threat remains the same," said another. "These toys could be weaponized to create self-assembling attack systems. We must consider revoking Earth's membership entirely." As the debate raged on, Nickel's Wonder Blocks were classified as restricted technology. Production was halted under the guise of safety concerns, and existing inventory was quietly collected by government agencies working with council security. Alan Wright watched these developments with growing concern. The pattern was becoming clear. Human innovation was triggering fear throughout the galactic community, and he didn't understand why. 2 months after the Wonder Blocks incident, Alan Wright received an unusual message. A high-ranking council member requested a private meeting, not at the official Earth embassy on Centralis, but at Alan's modest apartment in Geneva. The message emphasized that no one should know about this visit. Alan prepared some coffee, then remembered the council's strict ban and hid it away. When his doorbell rang at precisely midnight, he opened it to find a tall, hooded figure, Ambassador Trelvox. Alan said, surprised to recognize the head of the council's inner circle. "I didn't expect someone of your station." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it entered, scanning the apartment carefully before speaking. "What I am about to tell you has been debated for months," Trelvox said, settling onto Alan's couch with some difficulty due to his jointed limbs. "But recent events have forced a decision." Alan sat quietly, waiting. "Earth was never a developing species as we claimed," the alien began. "That classification was diplomatic fiction." "I don't understand," Alan replied. "When we first detected your signals, we recognized something unusual. Your species possesses what we call creative intuition, the ability to make conceptual leaps without following established logical progression." Trelvox's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of discomfort. Most species advance technologically in predictable patterns. It takes thousands of years to move from one fundamental understanding to the next. But humans, the alien paused. "You see connections that others miss. You apply concepts in ways that defy conventional wisdom. Is that why the Council keeps panicking over our inventions?" Alan asked. "Yes. What took other species centuries of careful research, humans accomplish through what you call tinkering. Your Paul Jackson created molecular targeting technology that our scientists spent generations perfecting. Your Susan Miller accidentally solved quantum consciousness problems that have stumped our best minds for millennia." Alan leaned forward. "So the educational materials you've been sharing were tests," Trelvox admitted. "We wanted to observe how humans would apply basic concepts. We expected minor innovations over decades. Instead, within months, you created technologies that frighten our security experts. The microwave, the neural interface, the plant network, the self-assembling blocks." Alan listed. "Exactly. Each time, humans took basic principles and created applications that skipped centuries of development stages. Kevin Rodriguez transformed simple alien agriculture concepts into a biological computing network that could potentially coordinate planetary defense systems. But these were all peaceful applications," Alan argued. "That's what makes your species so confounding." Trelvox replied. "You don't recognize the military implications of your own innovations. Nickel Winters created self-assembling matter responsive to thought as a children's toy." The alien stood, moving to the window to look out at the night sky. "The Council faces an unprecedented dilemma. Some want Earth isolated as a potential threat. Others see humanity as the solution to technological stagnation affecting many worlds." "And which side are you on?" Alan asked quietly. Trelvox turned. "I led the faction advocating for partnership. Today, we reached a compromise." The alien handed Alan a small crystal device that projected a complex document. "Earth will receive a unique classification in Galactic records. Intuitive innovators. You'll have access to more information than before, but each human invention must be reviewed in private council sessions before wider release. So we're simultaneously trusted and feared," Alan said with a slight smile. "Precisely. Your species makes the impossible look inevitable. It's terrifying and exhilarating." Before leaving, Trelvox hesitated at the door. "There's a saying among council races, a tool is just a weapon not yet recognized. But humans have shown us something new. Sometimes a toy is a revolution waiting to happen." 3 weeks later, Alan sat in his first full council meeting as Earth's newly appointed ambassador. The massive chamber buzzed with representatives from hundreds of worlds. At the center, a sealed container arrived, bearing Earth's symbol. "The latest human innovation for review," announced the council speaker. As the container was carefully opened by security personnel wearing protective gear, Alan fought to hide his smile. Inside was a simple mechanical pencil, invented by a 10-year-old girl for her science fair. The Council's private session lasted 3 days. 5 years after Earth received its Intuitive Innovators classification, the relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council had evolved into an uneasy partnership. Private review sessions were now a routine part of galactic diplomacy, occurring so frequently that a dedicated chamber had been established solely for examining Earth's inventions. Grace Owens stood nervously outside this chamber, clutching a small box containing what she considered a minor improvement to existing technology. As Earth's newest innovation ambassador, this was her first presentation to the Council. "Don't worry," Alan Wright told her, now serving as Earth's senior representative. "They react this way to everything we bring." Last month, they spent 2 days analyzing a new type of zipper. "But my device is so simple," Grace said. "It just helps translate emotional states between species." Alan smiled knowingly. That's exactly what worries them. The chamber doors opened, revealing 12 council members seated in a semicircle. Each represented a different galactic region and species. At the center sat Trelvox, who had become Earth's most consistent advocate. "Ambassador Owens, please present your device," Trelvox said formally. Grace placed her box on the display pedestal. Inside was what looked like an ordinary wristband with a small screen. "This is the empathy bridge," she explained. "It reads biological markers like heart rate, skin conductivity, and micro-expressions, then translates them into emotional states that other species can understand." She demonstrated by placing the band on her wrist. The screen displayed a simple color pattern that shifted as she spoke. "Right now, I'm feeling nervous but excited." The pattern shows this in a universal format that works across species boundaries. A council member from a gaseous species leaned forward. "How does it interpret non-biological emotional states?" "My people have no hearts or skin." "That's what makes it special," Grace replied. "It doesn't rely on specific biological markers. It identifies patterns that indicate emotional states regardless of physical form. It works on energy beings, silicon-based life, even synthetic intelligences." The chamber grew noticeably quieter. "You've tested this on artificial intelligence?" asked another council member, alarm evident in their translator. "Yes," Grace nodded. "It accurately reads emotional patterns in everything from simple algorithms to complex autonomous systems." What Grace didn't fully appreciate was that she had just announced solving one of the greatest challenges in galactic society: the emotional disconnect between organic and synthetic life forms. Wars had been fought over misunderstood intentions between these fundamentally different types of consciousness. "How did you develop this technology?" Trelvox asked carefully. "I was trying to help my nonverbal son communicate his feelings," Grace explained. The basic concept just expanded from there. The council members exchanged glances that Grace couldn't interpret, but Alan recognized all too well. "We will need to examine this device thoroughly," Trelvox announced. "Please leave it with us and return tomorrow." Outside the chamber, Alan guided Grace toward the Earth Embassy. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. "Not at all," Alan assured her. "You just accidentally created technology that might prevent the next galactic war. But it's just an emotional translator." "Grace, the boundary between synthetic and organic life forms is the most volatile political issue in the galaxy. Major civilizations have collapsed over misinterpreted emotional intentions." The next morning, Grace and Alan returned to find the council members still in session, having worked through the night. They looked exhausted but animated. Trelvox addressed them formally. "The Council has determined that the empathy bridge represents a significant advancement in cross-species communication technology. We propose a joint development program between Earth and Council scientists." What followed was unprecedented. Instead of restrictions, the Council requested collaboration. Grace would lead a team of the galaxy's foremost experts in developing her technology for universal use. As they left the chamber, Trelvox pulled Alan aside. "She created this to help her child communicate," the alien said quietly. "This is what we still fail to understand about humans. Your greatest innovations come not from strategic research, but from solving immediate, personal problems. Ellen smiled. That's our secret. We don't think about changing the galaxy. We just try to make life better one small step at a time. Back on Earth, a child was already tinkering with his mother's prototype, making improvements that would, unknowingly, solve another age-old galactic problem.